Back before the internet, there was a time that the internet did not exist. Or it was DARPA, and DARPA was essentially useless. I went on a search for, I had some very wild spiritual experiences, and have had them ever since then. And I went to see what in the church had it. The present day church didn't. I went to do some research on the history of the Mormon church, if it had these spiritual experiences, if these things that were happening to me in my religion. And the person I found that had the research was Jim Harmston. He was a realtor in Ogden, and this was his hobby. So I went to Ogden and met him, and all this research that I could find nowhere else. So I got to know him, and he later moved to Manti, Utah, and I went down there to read more of his stuff. There's a huge amount of material. Some of it's stolen, some of it got out of the church archive some way, but it was fascinating reading about the spiritual and physical history of the Mormon church. It wasn't what they were promoting. Anyway, the last time I saw him was at a pizza place in Ephraim, Utah. But after that, he decided to become a prophet. He moved over to become a prophet, and he claimed to be the reincarnated Joseph Smith. And more than that, he claimed to be God. So I know Jim Harmston started out as a realtor and became God. But anyway, this story isn't about him. I'll do these stories later. I'll talk about them later. They're really major stories for me. I want to just talk about his wife. I got to know this family well. I got to know the kids. I got to know everybody in my journey to find out what's true, what was happening to me. Anyway, let's move him back to the corner because we're going to talk not about him, though his aftermath was something else. I was invited to breakfast at the Harmston house. I think it was Elaine that invited me, or Jim. I don't know. Can't remember. But I went in the back door of this house in Manti, and there on the table was where we're going to have breakfast. Sitting on the table were a bunch of Polaroids, just a collection scattered on there. Somebody had been looking at them. With some Polaroid photos. This was the breakfast table, and they were starting to clear them up, and I was helping them, and I said, "Who is this?" The answer shocked me. I was there for breakfast. They invited me, and I'm ready for a breakfast anytime. And they're sitting on the thing with some photos of a very pretty woman. Almost looked like a model. This woman must model for a living. She was gorgeous. And I said, "Who are these?" And they say, "They're Mom." Well, Elaine was a rather heavy-set, large woman. I was holding pictures of her. And I said, "How long ago were they taken?" "A year and a half." Put me in shock. The transformation between what was there in the photo and what was there in front of me in the kitchen. The transformation was dramatic. Triggered a whole bunch of questions, but it didn't ask him them. I waited till later. I found myself alone with Elaine about something. I can't remember what it was. It was just her and me, and I asked her, "I got a question. Can I ask you a question that's kind of personal, but it's about the photos that day?" And she said, yes, you could. And I said, "Did this have anything to do with your relationship with this affair you had?" See, I found out she had an affair. All the stigma that brings in the church. I said, "Did this affair you had with this man have anything to do with God and his intervention?" And she got angry. "Yes," she said, "it did." So she said yes again, and yes, it was to do with God. And she was angry because God was involved. The Spirit was involved in her connection to this man down here, outside of Jim Harmston. I said, "What happened?" He says, "It just blew up, and she ended up here." Went back to Jim and all that. The divine intervened. Yes, it did. But there she was. So she made a choice. Elaine Harmston made a choice. She was given a choice to go this direction, and it was her narrative, her story, or to go to Jim's narrative, Jim's story. And Jim's story is about being Joseph Smith and bringing all that back, creation. But that's the one she chose. And she ended up being one of 23 wives. The only one of all his wives that I knew was, she was one wife here. She came to Jim, and here it goes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and she became one of 23 wives. I'm having trouble counting all these women around him, even in symbols. Obviously, I can't count that high. Imagine trying to live with that many. I can't even wrap my mind around that. And why Elaine made that choice. I think it had something to do with self-esteem. She had low personal value of how neat she really was, and she is a neat person. That's how many he had. 23. And Elaine was one of them. Just one. The only wife of all his wives I knew was Elaine. I thought about this and the choices we make. We come to junctions in our life that when we make those choices, we can never go back. The momentum of our choice carries us forward. But she went with Jim. Rather than going with her story, going with Jim's story had a cost. But he's gone. She's still around, but he's gone. Anyway, bye.